A Silent Voice is a movie I never fail to bring up when discussing the all-time greatest anime films. Yet, both the first and second time watching it left me unsatisfied. The beginning was a gut-wrenching, terrifyingly realistic exposition, causing you to boil with hatred at the protagonist, Shoya. What followed was perhaps one of the most well-executed, heart-wrenching redemption arcs shown on screen. With the introduction of each new character that we loved or loved to hate, every piece of the puzzle fell perfectly into place. The climax of the story was an emotional roller coaster that put you on the edge of your seat, making you beg the screen itself to just let Shoko and Shoya be okay, to give them another chance, for these characters who've been through so much to just have a happy ending. And then, that's what happens. Shoya wakes up, comforts Shoko, and everything ends up fine. They gave us exactly what we wanted, all wrapped up neat and tidy. I'm almost afraid to say that it's almost too perfect. And unfortunately, after spending way too long thinking about it, it's too good to be true. Let's quickly recap what we know happens. After the fateful moment on the balcony, Shoya is able to save Shoko, but ends up plummeting down many stories to the freezing water below. He blacks out, but wakes up shortly afterwards. He leaves the hospital in perfect health, running without even a stumble to find Shoko, and the two of them have a beautifully touching reunion. This makes no sense. As much as we all wanted to see this moment, as much generosity as we give to anime in terms of suspension of disbelief, there's just no amount of mental gymnastics that can make this make sense. It cannot happen. Now, I won't pretend I'm a medical expert, but falling from, by my count, at least 6 stories into freezing cold water where nobody else besides Shoko was around to help, the odds of you surviving are low as is. But getting right up just after regaining consciousness? That's more unlikely than me uploading more than once a year. It's important to note that the ending is one of the most noteworthy departures from the source material. In the manga, there's a ton more content, enough for what would have been a very lengthy portion of the film itself. Up until now, the film had remained largely true to the manga, which led many readers to question why there had been such a change-up. Fans have speculated a few possible reasons. One, there just wasn't enough time to adapt the manga in its entirety. There's only a certain amount of material that you can cover within the runtime of a film, so they had to cut out much of the later end of the manga. While this is obviously true to an extent, I think there's plenty they missed after the climax that, with how generally faithful they were with the adaptation up until now, could have definitely been included. 2, the manga content after the climax weren't important enough to the narrative. Again, there's some truth to this, but that's not 100% accurate with just how much content there was. I subscribe to the third theory, and you should subscribe to me. Anyways, I believe that the movie created an entirely different ending than the manga, one that's hinted towards at many points in the film. This new theory made me completely change how I viewed the movie. It made me question so many different aspects, and it broke my heart. My interpretation of the ending of A Silent Voice is as follows. Shoya attempts to save Shoko from falling, but ultimately falls short and falls from the balcony, along with Shoko. Thus, the film A Silent Voice is Shoya's recollection of his life, followed by what he imagines would have happened had he been able to save Shoko. However, Shoko was gone, not surviving the fall, with Shoya falling into a coma before ultimately dying himself. Before you dismiss this entire video essay as the ravings of some depressed loser, let me tell you A, that's what all video essays are, and B, I believe I have a very strong case for this theory, which I will begin presenting now. The first piece of evidence is what made me begin questioning the ending in the first place. After Shoya returns for the school festival, he is presented with a large amount of origami crayons, and maybe one of the most crucial yet unassuming details, they weren't able to make 1,000 in time. In Japanese culture, the folding of origami crayons is very significant, in that the legend says doing so will grant you a wish. But the important part is, you need to fold 1,000 of them. This is what made the line so strange. Why is it necessary to point out that they weren't able to make 1,000? They were folding the crayons to grant their wish of Shoya waking up from his coma. So what would it mean for them to not reach the 1,000 crayons needed for the wish to be granted? Moving on from that, let's examine the opening and closing shots of the film. The film begins with 2 silhouettes surrounded by light, and ends with that same image with the light filling the screen. It's interesting that this shot is repeated twice, even more so to start and finish the film. These shots are clearly significant, and are meant to signal something, but what? While this could be argued to symbolize many things, to me this is direct imagery of the afterlife, with 2 people literally going into the light. No, it is two people, and I don't believe there's any argument to be made that they aren't Shoya and Shoko. This fits with the theory that the film is the visions that Shoya sees while he's in a coma, before ultimately he and Shoko head into the light. What I think this interpretation of the ending does that I'm particularly fond of is it ties in the themes of Shoya's character arc in a beautifully tragic way. Throughout his entire life, Shoya is always just coming short. He tries to get Shoko money for the hearing aid he destroyed, but ultimately his money is destroyed before being able to get it to her. He tries to commit unalive, but just isn't able to. He tries to learn sign language to reconcile with Shoko, but just isn't quite able to understand her in the most crucial of moments. He tries to help her make friends, but falls short in making her feel comfortable. He tries to ease her worries, but isn't quite able to convince her. All the way until their final moments where he once again almost saves her, but can't. He almost survives, but doesn't. It's almost funny, but is just sad. Shoya's idealized vision of how he wishes things had gone beautifully captures his good nature, while also showing his naivety. The first thing that he wanted to happen was for Shoko to not blame herself for what happened, wanting to give her the forgiveness that he could never truly earn for himself. He wanted for everyone to get along and for Shoko to be able to find her place. He wanted for friends of Shoko to be able to communicate with her. And he wanted to be able to face others without being overcome with shame. His tears in the ending were perhaps because he finally realizes that none of that would ever happen. The beauty of A Silent Voice is how, like the characters, it speaks without speaking outright. We aren't given any direct information of Shoya and Shoko's deaths, just as we aren't given explicit information about how Shoko felt right up until the point that she jumps. In fact, we're led to believe the exact opposite, where we're lured into a false sense of security, and we want to believe everything is okay, but in the back of our minds we can tell something is wrong, making the moment all the more shocking. A Silent Voice is so brilliant because of how it expresses so much within the gaps of what is spoken. As for who's left, well, Shoya's friends walk away feeling saddened but blameless for what happened. Yuzuru, on top of losing her grandmother, has also lost her sister and best friend. Without knowing what truly happened on that balcony, their families are left to believe that Shoko and Shoya committed a double unalive. And that's that. As I've stated before, this new interpretation of A Silent Voice completely changes the ending of the film. Yet, the message remains the same. Communication is how we can understand each other, as different as we are, so we must look and listen well. Whether or not Shoya and Shoko lived happily ever after, or tragically perished under a sky filled with fireworks, we must remember that for us to exist, there must be empathy. And for empathy, there must be communication, no matter the shape of voice. Thank you for watching. More video essays coming soon.
Anyway, $4 a pound.